very good afternoon to all present. Thank you, Dr. Vital and the team to invite me here to give a talk on this PCOS. So it might sound odd, what is the obstetrician doing in a meeting of physician? But it's not a disease which is restricted. Excuse me, how to change this? So it's not a disease which is restricted. The patients are not only coming to the obstetrician. Patient with the PCOS are going to multiple specialists. Slides how to change. So a patient with a PCOS can reach anybody. First person she probably reaches is a general practitioner. She can go to a gynecologist, she can go to a dermatologist, she can go to a nutritionist, she can go to a psychiatrist. So there are so many people she can approach. So everybody must have a basic knowledge of PCOS. So September month is PCOS Awareness Month. That's for awareness of the doctors as well as public about PCOS and its effect and its optimal management and outcomes. So what is PCOS? PCOS is a heterogeneous, complex, genetic trait. We still don't know what is the etiology. It's probably multiple etiology, and it is an important cause of ovulatory and menstrual irregularity, infertility, clinically evident hyperandrogenism, and metabolic dysfunction in women. So if you talk about the, it's a most common reproductive age group endocrinal disorder. So 10 to 13% of the women, they suffer from PCOS, and I feel presently in urban area it's much more. I don't think we have any day in OPD when we don't see at least 3 to 4 PCOS patients. So it's becoming an epidemic. If you see infertility women, about 20% of the women who suffer infertility, they have basically PCOD. But the most important issue is that 70% of the affected women who have PCOS, they are not diagnosed. And 45% of the females who don't have PCOS, they get treatment for PCOS. So it's very important to make a proper diagnosis of PCOS. So it happens very often. A girl or a young woman walks into our OPD and we ask her, what is your complaint? And she says, I'm suffering from PCOS. So you have to, she cannot make the diagnosis. That's a wrong diagnosis which has been made, because maybe only the ultrasound has polycystic ovaries and she thinks, or somebody has told her that she is suffering from PCOS. PCOS is not merely polycystic ovaries. Okay, so there are 3 core components for the diagnosis of PCOS. There is hyperandrogenism, which can be clinical or biochemical. There is chronic oligo-ovulation or anovulation, and there is polycystic ovarian morphology on ultrasound. And there are very strict criteria for diagnosis of polycystic ovarian morphology on ultrasound. So there are different bodies, for everything there are different bodies, then they give their own criteria. But the one which needs to be remembered and easy is that out of this, Rotterdam has given this criteria, that out of these 3, when 2 are present, then we can label a patient as suffering from PCOS. Okay, so these are the different bodies, I won't go into detail. So, but whenever you are making a diagnosis of PCOS, you must rule out other 2 main important causes which are very common: thyroid dysfunction, you all know, and hyperprolactinemia. So they can also mimic polycystic ovarian syndrome, so they must be excluded. The rare ones are non-classical adrenal hyperplasia, adrenal or ovarian tumors, Cushing syndrome or acromegaly. These are very, very rare. But the 2 investigations which can rule out is TSH and prolactin, that they are in the normal range. Then you say that yes, this patient is suffering from PCOS. Recently, there is, recommendations are published in August 23 only from International Evidence-Based Guidelines for Assessment and Management of PCOS. they have added AMH as one of the criteria. There were a lot of studies done on AMH, but it was not added as one of the criteria. So what is AMH? AMH is a hormone which is secreted by small follicles in the ovary, preantral follicles, and because there are multiple follicles in patients with PCOS, the levels of AMH are high. So this can be used as one of the criteria for diagnosis of PCOS. So how do you diagnose a patient is having oligo or anovulation? So it depends at what age the girl has presented to you. If the girl is brought within 1 year of menarche, that she is having irregular cycles, prolonged cycles, you should not make a diagnosis of PCOS, because that's the time hypothalamic pituitary axis is immature, so prolonged cycles is a possibility. So that's not because of the PCOS. Don't do any ultrasound, no further investigation. Tell the parents wait for a year, and after that see what are the menstrual pattern like. In the next 2 years, diagnose PCOS if she is having irregular menstrual cycle, that is less than 21 or more than 45 days, or she has a period of amenorrhea which is lasting more than 90 days, and there is clinically or biochemically hyperandrogenism. After that, till 19 years of age, you diagnose PCOS if the cycle length is even more than 35 days. So then PCOS should be diagnosed. Ultrasound should never be done till 8 years after adolescence, because normally also polycystic ovarian morphology may be there. So if a girl achieved menarche at 12 years, till 20 years, ultrasound should not be done to make a diagnosis. So how do you say somebody is suffering from clinical hyperandrogenism? She has acne, alopecia and hirsutism. So these three features. Acne and hirsutism, very severe acne in adolescence. That is, we know some amount of acne is common in young adolescent girls. But if it is a very severe acne which is not responding to the usual therapy, then one should suspect that she is suffering from hyperandrogenism. Hirsutism. For hirsutism, there is a scoring that is modified Fahrenheit-Gallwey score, and if that score is more than 4 to 6, that means that the girl is suffering from hirsutism. Sonography is very, very important. We get lots of reports. The sonologist does the ultrasound and just writes polycystic ovarian morphology. But what are the criteria? So criteria depends on how many follicles you can see per ovary. And that is possible only with a TVS, when you can see all the aspects of the ovary. So follicle number per ovary more than 20. Or if you are doing a trans-abdominal scan, like in a sexually inactive girl, then you can do a trans-abdominal scan, then number of follicles more than 10 per ovary, and which are 2 to 8 millimeter in diameter, and look at the ovarian volume. So ovarian volume more than 10 ml, either in one ovary or both the ovaries, makes the diagnosis of polycystic ovarian morphology. So this has to be combined with other feature to make a diagnosis of PCOS. So polycystic ovarian appearance can also be found in certain other conditions like congenital adrenal hyperplasia, Cushing syndrome, or exogenous use of certain medications. So if you want to see the polycystic ovarian morphology on ultrasound, patient should not be on OCPs. She should be off OCPs for 3 months, otherwise you may not find the typical morphology. So how do you diagnose PCOS? So if clinically patient has irregular cycles and hyperandrogenism, you don't need further investigation. Diagnosis is made after you have excluded other causes. But if there is no clinical hyperandrogenism, then you can test for biochemical hyperandrogenism by doing investigations. And if either only is present, if only clinical hyperandrogenism or irregular menstrual cycles, then you can go for ultrasound. So what are the investigations? Basically, actually investigations are not really required to make a diagnosis, but to exclude the other causes. Like I already said, you test the thyroid, you test the prolactin, you test for hyperandrogenism biochemical by doing a testosterone level. 17-hydroxyprogesterone and DHEAS are done to rule out other secondary causes. And all these patients should have a baseline lipid profile, and one should test for insulin resistance by doing a fasting glucose test and the oral glucose tolerance test. So I already said in a young girl, make the diagnosis with caution. That may be a normal immature hypothalamic axis, and similarly in perimenopausal women. So generally PCOS starts in the reproductive age. It doesn't start in the perimenopausal age. So the previous history is important when you diagnose PCOS in perimenopausal women. So most of the women who have PCOS, they are obese. 70 to 80%, their BMI is generally more. But recently it has been found that certain thin women also have PCOS. So they are known as lean PCOS. Generally the diagnosis is delayed in them, but they have the same basic pathology as in the obese PCOS. So if we see across the lifespan, when the girl in the adolescent age, it is more of a reproductive problem. But when the woman reaches menopause, it becomes more of a metabolic problem. So why we are so much bothered about PCOS? What are the risk factors? What is the implication of PCOS? PCOS affects, it causes a lot of problems at every stage of life. So we know, already said that it causes irregular menstrual period, infertility. If the woman conceives, PCOS woman conceives, she has high risk of preeclampsia, gestational diabetes, premature birth, increased incidence of cesarean section. PCOS affects the metabolic function. It causes obesity, type 2 diabetes. It is associated with dyslipidemia, hypertension, sleep apnea, and like in the morning Dr. Ravinder Garg talked, it is the fatty liver, NAFLD. So it is the liver component of metabolic dysfunction. It is associated with endometrial cancer. Now even with ovarian cancer, it is suspected that it may be associated with increased incidence of ovarian cancer. It affects the mental health. The children, the young girls tend to be depressed, they are anxious, they have eating disorder, they have reduced quality of life, they have negative body image because of hirsutism, acne, obesity, acanthosis. So they have negative self-body image, and because of that they go into depression. It is also associated with cardiovascular disease, so myocardial infarction, strokes. So that is why a proper management of PCOS is very, very important. So there are different types of PCOS. Why they are important is that the ones which have both the features, hyperandrogenism as well as ovulatory dysfunction, they are worse off. They have more of insulin resistance, cardiovascular risk, and the glucose intolerance. Those who have only hyperandrogenism or oligoovulation associated with polycystic ovarian morphology, they are better off. So you see your patient falls into which phenotype, and accordingly you prognosticate the patient. So etiology is not clear, genetic, familial histories are there, and some epigenetic modification have also been implicated. So basically in the, when you see the pathophysiology, there is a hormone imbalance. LH is increased much more as compared to FSH. There is hyperandrogenism, and there is insulin resistance. So leading to the various risk factors of various diseases. So this is again about the pathogenesis only, how it affects the whole body system, not only the reproductive system. So what are the goals of treatment of PCOS? So goals depends at what age patient has come. Is she an adolescent girl who requires a regular cycle? Does she require the treatment of hyperandrogenism features? Does she require pregnancy, ovulation induction? Does she require contraception? Or the metabolic abnormalities have to be taken care. So you have to see your patient, what is required for your particular patient. But the basic of PCOS management is lifestyle changes. So that is the core. I won't go into detail because I think every lecture is stressing on lifestyle modification, and I think in our OPD, I was just telling my resident yesterday that probably out of 20 patients if I see, the 15 patients I am stressing on lifestyle modification. Whether it is pregnant women or it is PCOS women or women who come to us with gynae diseases and have associated diabetes and hypertension. So it is duty of every doctor to sensitize the patient how important it is to make lifestyle changes. Even 5% weight loss in PCOS that regularizes their cycle, decreases their weight, and the patients are happy. So it's a very common history. Patient tells she joined gyms for 3 months, her periods became regular, now she has stopped, now the periods have again become irregular. So lifestyle is the core, management is the core of PCOS treatment. So if the patient is not improving with your lifestyle modification, exercise, diet, she's not losing weight, you can even consider anti-obesity drugs like recently liraglutide and semaglutide. They have been advocated for reducing weight. Even bariatric surgery can be carried out in very morbidly obese women, even at a lower cutoff as compared to the one with the morbid associated condition for PCOS. But one thing you have to tell these patients, that once they have a bariatric surgery, they can conceive very fast. So 1 year they must use effective contraception after the surgery and should not conceive. Irregular cycles, so it depends on which age group the girl is. If she is less than 40, her BMI is less than 30, you can put her on oral pills, especially the ones which contain cyproterone. Or if she doesn't want the regular medicine, she can take progesterone withdrawal every 2 months. She must menstruate at least 6 to 8 times in a year. If it is more than 40, avoid COCs and give progesterone. Married woman who is anxious to conceive, you induce ovulation, and if she is concerned with amenorrhea only, then same way you can give her OCPs or progesterone withdrawal treatment. Ovulation induction, again weight loss is the first intervention. If that's not working, you can go for ovulation induction. I will not go much into details of this. So many drugs are there, and IVF and laparoscopic ovarian drilling, these are the many options. Hirsutism, that's the main concern of these young girls. They develop hirsutism, so they have to be concerned that whatever hair has come, that will not go with the treatment. We can only prevent new hair from developing. The hair which have come already, they have to be removed by various methods, lasers, epilation, waxing. So different methods have to be used. If a hirsute girl is planning to conceive, you cannot give her any drugs, because whatever the drugs we give for hirsutism, patient they will cause teratogenesis, and patient should not conceive while on treatment. So first find out what is her plan about pregnancy, and then only give for treatment for hirsutism. So you can give COCs, combined oral contraceptive pill with cyproterone. If that's not working, there are various anti-androgenic drugs like spironolactone, chlorodione, and finasteride rarely used. Contraception, again COCs are the best. They can use progesterone only pill or LNG IUS, which will prevent against endometrial hyperplasia and endometrial cancer also. Metformin has a great role in PCOS, because we have seen that one of the basic things in PCOS is insulin resistance. So indication of metformin are any adult whose BMI is more than 30, even adolescents, whose history is like suggestive of PCOS, for them also metformin can be given. Metformin is also used along with ovulation induction agent if ovulation induction agents alone have failed. So it leads to better ovulation and patient can conceive. It's a category B drug, so absolutely safe even when patient conceives when she is taking the drugs. Other recent drug is myoinositol and inositol. That is also a insulin sensitizer only, decreases the insulin resistance and improves the ovulation function. For preventing the endometrial hyperplasia and malignancy, because it's a hyperestrogenic condition, you have to give regular progesterone, every 2 months withdrawal, or LNG IUS can be given. And these women, even at a very young age, if they have abnormal uterine bleeding, they should be investigated, and endometrial sampling should be done to rule out endometrial cancer. So there are cases, even less than 40 years they may develop cancer if the disease is not taken care of. So carry-on messages are, I'm just summing up, it's a hyperandrogenic state, especially of ovarian origin. So exercise quotient, then you are diagnosing in adolescent and elderly, and make a proper diagnosis on 2 of the 3 criteria. COC or progesterone withdrawal bleeding to regularize the cycle and for prevention of endometrial cancer. Mechanical methods to get rid of established hair. COC with cyproterone helps in decreasing the regrowth of the hair. Induction of ovulation for infertility. Weight loss through lifestyle changes and exercise helps reducing the metabolic syndrome and improving the ovulation. Prove the insulin resistance by GGT, especially in obese, before you start metformin. And you should regularly screen them for diabetes and for cardiovascular risk factor. Thank you for a very patient hearing.
Thank you, ma'am. The next talk is on